Ha. Hi everyone, Starthany Chase Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Greta Van Fleet album, Starcatcher. This is the newest and third full-length LP from Michigan natives, the rock outfit Greta Van Fleet, a band known for their wide-armed embrace of old hard rock tropes, really bringing it back to those classic sounds of the late 60s and early 70s, to the point where the band has drawn multiple comparisons to the likes of Aerosmith, Rush, and especially Led Zeppelin, to the point where they've been called out almost as like a rip-off act. And look, I've made those observations myself in previous reviews, but I did think the band did at least a little bit to advance themselves creatively on their last full-length LP, where the song structures did get a bit more ambitious and prog rock influenced. Still, though, on that thing, there were some major writing, playing, and production shortcomings, not to mention they're saddled with who I think is one of the worst singers on the modern rock circuit. So yeah, didn't really care for this album, but regardless, I went into their latest effort here with hopes high that, this might be the one. This might be the Greta Van Fleet album that I find to be tolerable. And you know what? I'll say Starcatcher, it's close, but no cigar. Because for sure, at least a few of the band's best tunes so far show up on this project. Most notably Meet the Master, which is an acoustic tune of sorts, with some dramatically strummed guitars and really righteous lead vocals, some sad and mysterious synth passages, as well as some roaring rock riffs on a crescendo around the midpoint. It's actually got some really compelling melodies throughout the entire thing. The string sections that pop in toward the back end of the track are fantastic too. It's a Greta Van Fleet song I could say is downright catchy. But even if the band did save some of the best for last on this project, I think the rest of the album, it's just not nearly as good. Because not only are the tunes and riffs just really not that memorable, with much of the record feeling like an endless hard rock run-on sentence, with only a few moments standing out like the ear-piercing and saturated lead vocals, with insane amounts of vibrato on Sacred the Thread. The Indigo Streak has some really bright and epic vocal harmonies that I thought were a really nice touch on that track. But then in the middle of the record, we get this really loud, deafening 1-minute blues rock jam, Runway Blues, which I don't think the band is doing the blues and blues rock generally here much justice. They're sounding kind of silly with it and over the top with it much of the time. So I suppose in a way it is a blessing in disguise that it just randomly fades out before it even hits the 2-minute mark. But for the most part, that's all I can really stand to pull out of this album. Because truth be told, I still had a difficult time listening to this, and I, to this day, feel like the band's biggest flaws, biggest problems are still big problems. As even with all of these years under their collective belts, performing and recording, there's not a whole lot of finesse to the playing on this record, in my opinion. Even the vocal harmonies on the closing track come off kind of sloppy. Plus, there are numerous guitar passages and riffs that feel really ham-fisted, busy bass lines that throw out a lot of notes, but don't really have a ton of appreciation for the groove of the track. Not to mention the lead vocals are still a massive splitting headache for me. Yeah, whatever is that very loud, high-pitched, gurgly thing that's getting done. Yeah, it's really, really just destroying, tearing apart, shredding my eardrums. But really the most disqualifying thing about this entire album has to be the recording. Because damn if it doesn't sound like a live show where the sound in the venue is horrifically bad. It's like the band is playing in a place with sheet metal walls, floors, and ceilings. As the timbre of everything just feels really, really thin, even the bass, and on top of that, there's an unnecessary amount of reverb and echo on nearly everything going on. So there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of bleed, which doesn't really complement the already sort of chaotic playing. Plus the vocals and guitars are pumped up volume-wise in the mix, and so saturated too, that they're just painful to listen to. Like, as I hear this thing, I want to throw in earplugs. Even when the band is playing decently or throwing down some likable riff, something like that, it's still kind of tough and annoying to listen to. And the most confusing thing about this production choice is that it magnifies the band's shortcomings and blemishes, give it an extra heap of atmosphere or some repetitious echoes. And it's unfortunate because, at least from what I could make out on a few tracks that sounded likable, it seemed like the band was doing a somewhat better job this time around of writing and performing. The vocals were at least tolerable on the second to last track, but for the most part on this record, everything is so washed out in effects and so maxed out in volume to where, again, it just sounds like a live performance where the house sound is shit. Or like you're hearing the band play at a festival you paid way too much to go to. Greta Van Fleet really decided to throw the sound of these tracks in the worst blender imaginable mix-wise, and it just came out as this ear-piercing pile of slop. I'm feeling a decent 2 strong 3 on this one. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, and please subscribe. Please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Greta Van Fleet, forever.